Greetings Internet, my name is Michael J Migliore. I am your man on film and I'm here to talk to you about Mortal Kombat. Right off the bat, let's start out with the big spoiler, the spoiler of the moment. I did not like this movie. The film looked like there was a ton of money pumped into it to make it look halfway decent, but in the end, all the other aspects and quality of the production just didn't reach a level of good standards. But we'll get into that. But first off, let's establish a few things. Who is this film made for? From a personal standpoint, I watch movies. I also happen to play fighting games in a competitive sense. Am I the audience that this film was made for? I have fond memories of the old Mortal Kombat video games. I have very much fond memories also, and this will come up a lot, of the old Mortal Kombat movie, the original one anyway. I never bothered to watch Annihilation, even though I hear it is absolutely horrible. So, am I the audience for this movie? What does this film and Warner Brothers say about what Mortal Kombat is? If I am not the audience, or if I am the audience, what is it that Warner Brothers and the people selling you this film is trying to say Mortal Kombat is? This film has a legacy, be it with the original video game that spawned the franchise, or with the 1995 film that has become a cult classic among cheesy kind of 90s action films.
Your brother's soul is mine.
So say what you will, Mortal Kombat as a name, as a brand, has recognition. People know Mortal Kombat. People know of Mortal Kombat at the very least, even if they haven't played the video games or if they haven't watched the 1995 film. It is a cultural hub, and it's with that cultural centricity, people understand and people gravitate to it and people will recognize it, and people, as we can see, have wanted to see it and want to watch this film. So how did we get here? How did we get to Mortal Kombat 2021? The video game was first adapted into the 1995 film. Now, 1995, that was around the time that there was a lot of studios making just random video game movies. And the video game movies, they were all very bad. Mortal Kombat, I feel like, stands out as an outlier because it's one of the ones that have kind of stood the test of time, in the sense that it is one that people remember very fondly. People remember very fondly. It's generated memes that last till today.
Your brother's soul is mine.
It has generated one of the most recognizable theme songs to any film, really, that has come out in the 90s. So much so that they've even remixed the 1995 theme and added it to this current film. On top of that, we have the ongoing game series that is actually as popular as it's ever been, more popular than it's ever been. It's all very critically acclaimed and critically well received.
Path I choose ends with your soul.
It is a legacy, and it is a game series and franchise that is still very much alive and kicking. But as for this film, how this film came about, a few years back there was a YouTube web series of Mortal Kombat that was kind of like a reimagining of Mortal Kombat, there was like a few short episodes. I think it was like 6 at the most, maybe 10, 15-minute episodes that would go into the background and kind of like a story about these a variety of the different characters from Mortal Kombat from a different lens, from a different view. After this small independent project is when we started to hear really these rumors of Warner Brothers wanting to make another Mortal Kombat film and shopping that around. And so coming back again to Mortal Kombat 2021. What was my experience with this film? This film is not very good. The film had a budget. It was a big, major motion picture. It was released in theaters and in HBO Max alongside. But you can tell that the film is not this small independent project that, again, started on YouTube. The problem with the film is, though, it falls into a lot of what happened in the 90s with video game films, and what kind of, to a certain degree, continues to happen. So kind of like a 90s video game trap. In this trap, you find producers trying to turn a profit off of an established fan base, being the video game fan base, or even like any kind of like general recognition that people have with Mortal Kombat, using that fan base and creating a product that they will immediately associate with the least amount of effort possible. I say the least amount of effort possible, and that may be not being very kind, but in honesty, what I'm trying to get at is that there are decisions that are being made on the production level with producers and with the studio that derides kind of the fan base and the lore of the established franchise. But there's a serious issue, and I've mentioned this before in other videos, when a studio takes a property and they stick people that aren't necessarily familiar with the property or have that care and that understanding of the property and of the lore and of the legacy that the property has. And usually that is something that the fan base really will reject outright. And that's why it's infamous that video games have really horrible film adaptations. Now, don't get me wrong when I say that they've made decisions that deride what the fans will expect or what the lore or the franchise has established. Now, making something your own, be it a cover song or be it any kind of other adaptation of a media source, making something your own in and of itself is not a bad thing. The problem is when you make changes to an established lore, you usually do in order to improve the experience in some sort of way, or even to make it easier to make the transition from video game to film, or comic book to film, etc., etc. But there are a lot of decisions that have been shoehorned into this film that really go against the better overall experience of the film. The first and most obvious one of these decisions that probably has caused the most tension between fans and between the public that has received this film is the fact that they created a brand new character to work as the main character of the film. Character unattached to the previous franchises in any way at all. That will be this character called Cole Young, played by Louis Tan.
Now I tear out your spine.
One of the other things that really didn't gel really well and that kind of irked me very much was this idea of creating this Deus Ex Machina to kind of explain all the high mystical kind of martial arts that are going around. And that was this idea of an arcana that had to be unlocked, this kind of like true potential within the warriors that were gathered for Mortal Kombat in order for them to level the playing ground between them and people, the other warriors from Outworld or the other monstrous warrior that they would be fighting across the different realms. And another really big thing that kind of affected the story directly, probably one of the reasons why their film had very little, if any, story at all that was really of any consequence, was that they kind of took a swat of the history of Mortal Kombat and they kind of picked and chose a variety of different events throughout that history of Mortal Kombat, of the franchise, films, video games, everything, and kind of just like mashed it all together. Instead of getting into the actual drama of going through everything that happens in the previous franchise or the established things, a lot of history and a lot of backstory was just condensed and kind of explained away. And it's a lot of more interesting things than anything that ever happened in this film. And that goes back to kind of like the main crux of what makes this film so bad. The storytelling in this film was atrocious. The storytelling and establishing of lore almost like did not take place. There's brief exposition kind of like spattered throughout the film that kind of just like briefly explains what has happened up until this point, and it's done so in such a very disconnected and kind of like inconsequential way, where it's, instead of actually experiencing like great wars and great battles and great fights throughout the course of this whole Mortal Kombat legacy, the filmmakers have approached the storytelling in this film as something whereas it should already be common knowledge, and so just a simple recap and a simple summary should be enough to explain what's going on and why everything is going on. And that just doesn't cut it. And that does it more than not cutting it, and makes it just incredibly uninteresting. And that's like what the basis of why this film was so bad. It's just uninteresting. Even if you take the choreography, whereas the choreography is so hit or miss at times, where it's like you have the peak of the choreography that really peaks 10 minutes into the film with this amazing, fantastic opening sequence, the death of Scorpion basically by the hands of Sub-Zero. And then you go on to the rest of the film and it feels like you're watching a completely different film. The choreography was very muddled by poor decisions in editing. Poor decisions in shooting and direction. What happens is you have a variety of different fights happening at the same time, and you're jumping from one fight to the next without anything particularly significant happening in any of the fights that is any kind of memorable whatsoever. It seems like there was going to be a big focus on fatalities in this film, and while there are a lot of fatalities that happen, a lot of them, like I said, that you fail to just kind of feel the impact of the fatalities because you don't care about any of these characters, and the preceding fights that lead to the fatalities are almost meaningless and completely forgettable. Now, I had very little expectations coming into this film. I actually wasn't really looking forward to it at all. Like, I'd seen a trailer and I had heard about it, and I was like, I wasn't really into it. And the week leading up to the film's release, they actually released the first 10 minutes of the film, which was that fight scene that I told you about between Sub-Zero and Scorpion. And had I seen that, I would have really given me a little bit of interest to actually want to watch it. Unfortunately, I ended up watching it anyway, of course, and that was going to be a given because of the nature of my hobbies and the nature of my profession. The film has inspired a fair amount of chatter online. It's inspired a great degree of divisiveness among the people that have watched it. And as I've already said and I've established, the film is not good. The storytelling is inconsistent, sometimes completely non-existent, and everything about the film just gives off this kind of very like shallow veneer of like, we've spent so much money trying to make it look good, but there's literally nothing behind the surface. More importantly, there's nothing that's long-lasting and like memorable about the film that's going to keep people interested in the film years to come. Naturally, it looks like they're probably going to make a sequel to the film. Like I said, the film was not as poorly received as I imagined it probably would be. On top of that, they do set up plenty of room for a sequel, which would go in turn with the actual franchise, because there's been 11 of the games made, and there are a multitude of characters to pick and choose from to throw into a movie and kill off. The most curious part about this film and about this film's reception is that I've had a variety of people over the course of the week tell me, oh, it's just a Mortal Kombat movie. Oh, it's just a video game movie. What did you expect? As if any of these dumb excuses was justification to how bad this film was. If you're familiar with me and my channel, then you should know I watch bad movies. I love bad movies. I like watching them. I love them. I love deconstructing them. I love seeing the value in the diamond in the rough that a lot of these films somehow tend to be. Just because I like a bad movie doesn't make the bad movie good. And I think there's too much of a general mentality established that says if you enjoyed something, if you liked something, then that automatically curtails it to being a good product. And that's just not true. Going on with that logic, what should I have expected from this film? I'll tell you what, the same thing I expect from any film that anyone would dedicate any considerable amount of time to watch and invest in. That time, that investment should return with an entertaining and engaging experience, which this film failed to deliver on. But if Mortal Kombat did that to you, if you found it engaging and entertaining, then good for you. I'm happy for you. But don't expect me to keep your poor standards. Thanks again for watching. My name is Michael J Migliore. Please like, share, and subscribe to this video, and tell me how wrong I am in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Thank you for watching. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and please keep an eye out on the channel and my blog for content coming up in the next few weeks. In the meantime, please take care of yourselves.